Good evening, everybody. Bobby Python here, and we are on day 47 of 365 days of the greatest book ever written. And it's a Friday night. We'll see if anybody shows up. I know it's it's been a long week. I look like it's been a long week, don't I? so anyways, let me just get started here. I want to just copy this one link, and then we'll get going. So let's see who shows up and takes it. We'll take it from there. Okay. Anybody showing up just yet? I see 3 people. Hi, Cheryl. How are you? Fighting with the red blood cells. I don't know. Maybe they're always fighting. We just can't feel it. Oh, is it 48? Oh boy, Jim. I gotta make sure I keep track of that a little better. I thought it was day 47. Let me see now. Okay. I'll get it corrected tomorrow. I'm like trying to make sure I copy all my stuff just in case I get banned and so forth. Because YouTube is definitely taking on people, and I'm a little concerned that if they do ban, that it's just, they might not give me all the stuff that I created either. So I'm a little concerned about that. So I'll be sure to copy everything. But I'm having a website built where some of the stuff will be housed as well, to make sure that if they do copy it or try to keep it from me, that I could put it out there somewhere else and maybe self-host if I have to. So let me get going here. Okay. So let's just jump right into it. Okay. So I think you guys are correcto mundo. We are on day 48, but I guess I went back in time, if you could believe that. Yeah, I did set up an account on Rumble, and I did start to download stuff there, Celicia. And so I'm Bobby Python there on Rumble. Oh boy. So procedures for sin offerings. Wow. Can you imagine if these procedures were put into place for our Congress or any politicians out there? It would be we'd have a lot of animals getting slaughtered if this happened. But once again, with Leviticus, we're on number 4. You can see that they repeated themselves a lot in Leviticus 4 about the protocol and the procedures. And if a high priest sins, bringing guilt on the entire community, they have to bring a young bull. I think actually this was a bull, and they have to slaughter it in front of the tabernacle and so forth. And what's interesting about a bull is not just what it represents from a spiritual perspective, but the strength and virility. A bull is extremely important in terms of your flock of cows and everything. And so, for the Lord to basically say, if you sin as a high priest, the whole community is going to be very upset with you folks, because a bull is such a valuable asset in society, especially back then, and is critical for the longevity and the health of of the flock going forward. Because I would imagine, bulls are not that common. Even today on farms, there's not like an overabundance of bulls. There usually tends to be like one or 2 bulls, because they tend to fight, right? You don't want to have too many bulls together. So the bulls are there strictly for mating and helping produce and expand the flock. And so for the Lord to want a bull sacrificed, it's not like they had 2 or 3 of these things, is my guess. They might have, but it would be a very big sacrifice indeed. It's not just a sacrifice in this, in the same way as a sheep or in a goat. A bull is a really, really big deal, and they kind of walk through the whole procedure with that. But I just wanted to point that out because, I'm sure it would really make sure that the community made a decision as to whether or not the person that resulted in the sacrifice of their bull continued to be a high priest in their community. So it was sending a very strong message by Lord that, you know what, this is how bad this person is. I'm going to take away something that's one of the most valuable things in your community. And, if you think about this, this is a brilliant idea. Once again, leave it to God to come up with these ideas that are put into the Bible. But if we had a similar type of thing in our society, where if some politician, basically, sinned against the American people, and just did something that was inappropriate, or did something that was extremely harmful to the American people, and we had to, when we caught them, we had to do something similar that would be a very strong reminder to everybody that supported them or didn't support them of just how bad what it is they did was. And I think that would be extremely powerful message. And, we could probably learn something from this story on how we structure things, and so forth. And, it's pretty interesting. I'm not exactly sure what we would structure for these politicians, but you would think, maybe when a politician violates some rules, this is one idea I would throw out there. A lot of the rich people in this country, they don't think their kids should have to go fight in wars, right? This is something that nobody really talks about. It's kind of like on the down low. It's the poor kids and the middle class kids that go off to war. In Iraq and Afghanistan, to support that lithium production in Afghanistan, or poppy seeds, and to make sure those natural resources are protected. It's a lot easier to steal natural resources overseas than it is on U.S. soil. There's different laws over there, i.e., there are none. So you can do what you want. If you're a politician in the United States, if you go on foreign soil, it's probably easier to cut deals with other criminals than it is on U.S. soil, because you're going to be subject to more issues here. So that's a good way to deflect. And I think the politicians have learned how to do that exceptionally well. So what I would say is, if they get caught in such activity, I'm sure a bunch of them have children or grandchildren. So if you get caught violating your office, I think your kids or your children should be in the front lines. You don't give them officer positions. You throw them on the front lines with all the other children of people that are being impacted negatively by these horrible decisions. And I think you would see wars change very fast if that's what the American people said, if that was their bull equivalent, where the American people said, you know what, when you violate our rights, that's fine. When we catch you, your children or your grandchildren, your future blood, they're going to be on the front lines anytime we go to war. So when you're in those positions where you're deciding whether or not we should go to war, you better think twice, because you're not just going to make this decision anymore in a vacuum like you have been, and so forth. There you go, Maria. Your firstborn son has to be sacrificed to the military, and so, I think that's not a bad idea. I think it would really help. I joke around, but I'm also serious. With regards to, if you want to end wars in this world, the proportion of wealth that your family has, and you need the military to defend wealth, the proportion of wealth that your family has is the number of that group of society. That's who has to be responsible for protecting that wealth. I wrote that a while back, and I had somebody who's from a very wealthy family say, "Do you want to get yourself killed or something?" Don't be talking about ideas like that. There's going to be a lot of people with money and power that aren't going to like those ideas to be discussed openly. That's the way we should consider doing it. So, anyways, that's that's the bull sacrifice. So then, if an Israeli leader violated the commandments of the Lord, then The other one was we went to a goat's head. So then a goat. So obviously, it's interesting because it kind of like you kind of go down to a goat, then you go to I think a young bull, gets slaughtered. Obviously, I think it was a goat, and then there was a sheep. So it kind of went down the line with depending on who it was. If people bring a sheep to their sin offering, then it must be a female with no defects. They really want to make sure that you did definitely feel the word sacrifice. It wasn't just the figure of speech for them, the way they would make you sacrifice different types of animals if you had sinned against the Lord. And even people that were with limited means and didn't have the resources of the wealthy in society and so forth, they made them sacrifice. And in the case where you didn't have the animals to sacrifice for your sins, they made you bring two pigeons or two turtle doves, and then they would sacrifice one by breaking its neck, and the other one they would they would burn it, and so forth. I don't agree that the bull is so valuable. That right, because it needs to be kept to increase the Lord. Grass can be slaughtered for heat. Yeah, I think Cheryl. I don't really think there's as many as you would think. But I'm not sure. I'll have to look into it more. But I know that it had a tremendous symbolic meaning in terms of the bulls in society and so forth, especially from a spiritual standpoint. And so, yeah, Cilicia, the rich their children should not get the armchair jobs. It should be, it should go back to a meritocracy. But here's the bad news, folks. In the 1990s and then in the early 2000s, under the Bush and Clinton crime families, they changed the way officers in the military advanced. A lot of people don't know this, and I only recently learned about this in the past probably 6 to 12 months. I went to school with a bunch of people from West Point, and I know some of the people in the Army don't like these folks in the West Point and so forth. But anyways, what I heard about the leadership with regards to the military before the troops got to pick who their leaders were, right? Makes sense. You had a company, everybody kind of decides who do they want to follow into war. Makes sense. You want to make sure that it was based on merit. It's the people that were the bravest. It's the people that people respected the most, and that, they earned the respect of all their soldiers, and that they would be wise and make good decisions, right? Because your life is on the line. You don't want an idiot to follow into war. Otherwise, you may not make it back. And so I see, Cheryl, you're on the farm. There are just as many bulls born as cows. No, I understand that, but I thought my understanding is a lot of the bulls would be slaughtered faster. I guess that's what you're saying. The bulls would be slaughtered faster for the meat, and the cows would be milked for their milk, right? But in terms of, I think they would always kind of run through the meat of bulls faster. So maybe you're right. But I guess when they say an adult bull, the question is, how many bulls would make it to adulthood? Would they let them truly get to that age, or would they, kill them earlier for veal and stuff? I'm not sure. Out there in the city picking up trash. But anyways, I think that the distribution of male, like bulls and then cows, is probably like humans. It's probably like 51-49 or something over time. Maybe it's 50-50 because you don't have bulls going to war like human beings have over time. That number should probably converge even more so. Boy, I got to tell you, my face looks really weird today. It looks very red. Just looking at this camera. So I don't know why the light is so off, folks. You guys have to deal with me today. I look like I'm very grizzly today in that camera. But anyways, with the turtle doves and then the pigeons and sacrificing those, if people couldn't afford those, they would let them, bring flour to sacrifice that. They're some of their finest flour. So in either way, when you look at this, in the flour was used as a burnt offering. Even it was the principle of it. It didn't matter what the value was on the surface to the community. It's what the value of the offering was to the people that committed the sin. And so things that were of greater value to people had to be, that's what had to be sacrificed. So the best way to kind of think about this, and there's been talk about this, don't look at the screen, look at the camera. Where's that camera? I think it's right here. Oh, there it is. Anyways, with regards to tickets, they've talked about this in different cities. If you're making $60,000 a year and you get a $300 speeding ticket, that's a half of 1% of your annual income. So you're very much so discouraged to speed because you don't want to lose a 0.5% of your income. Now, if you're making $1 million a year and you're speeding and you get a $300 ticket, you're not going to think twice about it. $300, it doesn't matter. I make 20 times that. So a $300 ticket divided by 20 is like a $15 ticket. And so, when you think about that, when you think about that ratio of it being $15, the question becomes, if somebody who's speeding has to pay more in line with what someone who makes $60,000, that ratio of that speeding ticket should be about $6,000, $5,000. And so if somebody who is wealthy was caught speeding, they should be fined $5,000 versus somebody who's not wealthy gets caught speeding, they should be fined $300. And so the proportion of pain is in relationship to your station in life. And, I think when I'm reading this, when I'm reading Leviticus 4 and I'm reading Leviticus 5, that's my takeaway from it. If you've been born with more advantage in life back then, and you're born with advantage, in the U.S. and so forth, that, with that advantage comes responsibility, and it also comes this concept of equity. You should feel the same type of penalties as other people in proportion to your station in life. And so that's what I would say. You were, somewhere between Jerry Nadler maybe doing a broadcast. Just think of that poor audience. Onward and Upward. That's pretty scary, right? Nadler and then J.B. Pritzker, and put all those guys in one room together, and it reminds me of The Family Guy. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Family Guy, but there's some pretty funny episodes about that. Some of these politicians remember that. Why would I give the local governments farmhouse mittens? It's not the point of the government. Maybe that $6,000 should go right back to the public. You ever think about that? Why do our fines for speeding go to the government? What if the fines from speeding went back to the people? Let's put that on its head. When you do something wrong, the government bureaucrats, they shouldn't have any incentive to come out ahead if there's a violation of things. Because why? Because then the cops are always looking for extra sources of revenue because they want to put it into the government coffers. Now, when someone got caught speeding, the government did not collect the money, and instead the money went into like a little slush fund for the people. So maybe there's a community party once a year. I'll just throw that out there. It's almost like a swearing jar. So if you're at a meeting with a bunch of people, and anytime somebody curses, they got to put $1 in, right? Or 50 cents or a quarter, depending on what your rules are for the group that you have. And then, at the end, the money kind of goes into, paying for pizza or something, or paying for something for the group. And what I think, a lot of these fines that happen, where we do not want our public officials that are supposedly out there to protect us, but if they do see somebody speeding, they have an obligation to support the party fund, the pizza fund for the, or the Christmas party at the end of the year. So anyways, I think that would be pretty cool. Is if the money did not go to the government when it came to certain types of fines, it went back to the people in some way, And in some respects, people be kind of rooting for some people to speed every once in a while. It's like, we had to cover our own liquor expense this year because there weren't enough people speeding, damn it. And all we got to do is we had enough money to pay for the food, but we didn't have enough money to pay for the liquor. So I don't know, guys. You better make sure you catch some more people next year. As I'm having a little cocktail right now. So anyways, why not give it to the homeless, abused? We already do, Jim. We already give a lot of money to those groups through our taxes. So, and in fact, since we're already giving that money in the form of taxes to those different groups, I do think that we need to have a better structure in place to make it, to disincentivize it, and in terms of making it more likely to solve the problem. And right now, the way it works, you have a bunch of government bureaucrats that work on various problems. And then what ends up happening is, they don't want to lose those problems, because if you lose the problem, you lose your job, you lose your salary and bonus and your pension and everything else. So what we should be doing in government is we need to have government functions within different problems that are being solved, if the government has a place, that is. I'm not arguing one way or another right now. I'm just saying if the government is involved in something, then the workforce of the government that's involved in solving that problem should be fluid to work on solving a problem and then move on to the next problem versus overstaying its welcome in a problem that was solved. And this is the way you kind of crush the incentive for people to lie and keep the problem going so that they don't lose any of their staff. And this is what we should do. No, we shouldn't be giving it to the legals, Cilicia. Come on. I think you might be in the wrong chat if you believe that. Just kidding. We don't need to be giving the illegals any of our money. They can fend for themselves, just like everybody else who came to this country that immigrated and so forth. So here we go. Let's go to Mark number 2. So basically, Jesus went out to the lakeshore, and then as he walked away, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, and sitting at the tax collector's booth. He said, "Follow me and be my disciple." And what's the proposal? Right, Bobby? You pay them not to come. We have to pay them not to come. Who's saying not to pay them? Wait a second. Who's saying to pay them not to come? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Biden announced the idea of the last day? No. Joe says they need 15 grand. I don't think so, pal. How much of that 15 is going to go in the pocket of his friends? It's going to be like 14,900. They'll get $100. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, Joe's out to lunch. But what's going to happen, folks? I mean, I keep hearing these rumors that something's going to happen. When Maria, Cheryl, Cilicia, everybody, when the hell are people just going to say, when are we going to have our pitchfork moment? Can you explain that to me? How in the world are we not, doing something to stop these people? There's 535 of these jokers, and then there's 600,000 of us for each one of them. Why don't we just do shifts? Why don't we have like 1,000 Americans every day, going and protesting each member of Congress? 1,000 people, hell, even 100 people a day. If we did 100 people a day, that's nothing. That's only 36,500 people a year. And when each representative is 616,000 people, maybe we need to organize in such a way that they have 100 people showing up every day telling them how moronic they are, and who the hell are they supposedly answering to, because they're not answering to us. So anyways, that's pretty disturbing. I'll have to look into it more. I didn't see that. Wow, look at that. Your husband didn't tell you you're crazy for an election integrity. There's hope for America yet. So here we are. We're going to, that executive order is not, I don't think it's going to go through. I was at a Geneva meeting yesterday for the Republican Party, and an attorney general for the area basically said what they're going to try to do, they're going to try to sneak it in. And they're trying to put in some kind of registration requirement that every 3 years or 5 years you have to re-register your gun. So even though you bought it legally, you have to reaffirm your registration. And that reaffirmation of the registration, if you fail to do so, you can be fined heavily or jailed. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to back into it so that if you do something, like for example, if Bobby comes out and speaks on social media and they don't like me very much, they're going to look into their million pages of laws and be like, oh, Bobby forgot to file this. And we didn't even tell Bobby he needed to file that report. But since he doesn't have his TPS report filed, we're going to go after him and try to arrest him. And so this is the way these lunatics play the game. And we don't have enough people ripping apart all this insane bullshit that has creeped into our system. I like that. I lost all my guns in the world. Yeah, I don't know if that's Cheryl, if you're just joking or that was convenient. I'm not sure where they're going to start, but they're trying to do it in Illinois and so forth. And so the TPS reports, the government is full of TPS reports, people. Okay. So, that about sums it up too. The only reason why I try not to do anything wrong is because when I make a mistake, there's 8 people that tell me I made a mistake. Pardon me? 8. I got 8 bosses, Bob. So anyways, the government's kind of got like 17 bosses. There's like probably 17 levels. When something is done wrong, you get harassed at least 17 times between all these little fiefdoms that exist and so forth. What would you say you do here? I'm a people person. See, sometimes I give the report and I send it through the fax machine. It's like, do you do that? Sometimes I give it to a secretary to do it. So, anyways, let's go on to Jesus. So, as he was going through this, follow me and be my disciple with regards to the tax collectors and so forth. And there are many people of this kind that were Jesus's followers, teachers of religious law who were and Pharisees, saw him eating with the tax collectors and the sinners, and they asked him, why does he eat with such scum? And you sit there and you think about that. These religious leaders, right? These teachers of religious law and who are the Pharisees, right? They said, why do they eat with such scum? That scum is cutting in on our action. Does that sound about right, folks? That scum is cutting in on our action. And if you think about the old church back then, they were competing with the government, so the government had the basis of being formed, and the church is like, wait a second, that's our money. We want that money. And now all of a sudden you guys are showing up, you're taking our cash. So of course you guys are scum. So there was a battle between church and state, and that battle between church and state has been taking place for thousands of years. And I do believe we're in the middle of it as well, and so forth. I did not look at any voter stuff. I'm going to look at some stuff this weekend, but I do know that there's so much. Look, here's the thing. I got to be careful with my choice of words. Right? I don't want to lose my account. But what I will say is that there's a tremendous amount of things that everybody can be looking into and so forth, because it's really obvious to anybody who chooses to look how much there is to find. So that's what we have to use our language properly nowadays, because it's one thing if you type it, Jim. It's another thing if I say it. And so you need to turn around and look into these things, and you'll see for yourself how much is truly wrong with our existing structure. And it is extremely one-sided and so forth. And, we have a big problem on our hands. This has got to come to a head. Maybe I need more flair. I have 18 buttons on Monday. I'm going to wear 18. So just so you guys know, not 17. I'm going to wear 18 of them. Anyways, I don't even think I've ever owned 18 buttons. But, it would be kind of funny if I came in with a shirt with that much flair on Monday. So here we go. When Jesus heard this, he told them, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. I have come to call not on those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners. And, once John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting, some people came to Jesus. Why do your disciples fast? Why don't they fast like John's disciples and the Pharisees do? And Jesus replied, do wedding guests fast while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. They can't fast when the groom is with them. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, and they will fast. Besides, who would patch old clothing with new cloth? For the new patch would shrink and rip away from the old cloth, leaving an even bigger tear than before. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, for wine would burst and burst the wineskins. But the wine and the skins would be lost. New wine calls for new wineskins. So I kind of like this because, on the Sabbath day, he's walking through the grain fields. Same thing with eating the grain. And it was this whole thing about not eating some of the stuff on the Sabbath. And Jesus said, haven't you ever read in the scriptures what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He went into the house of God during the days when Abiathar was high priest and broke the law by eating sacred loaves of bread that only the priests were allowed to eat. He gave them to his companions. Then Jesus said to them, and I love this line, by the way. This is one of my favorite ones of today's readings. Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath. And this is wonderfully said. I'm going to say it one more time. The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. If you think about it, if we were made to meet the requirements of the Sabbath, that's kind of like an idol, right? So we don't need an idol. We create the Sabbath, and God obviously rested on the seventh day, but the seventh day is a reminder for us as human beings that we want to meet our needs, and a part of our needs are to be reminded about the fact that the earth was made by God in 6 days and rested on the seventh. And while back then people were working, as well as the people that were slaves, that they had a right to rest on the seventh day. If God made the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh, then every human being that was working, as well as the animals, they got a break. They got 1 day to recharge their batteries, and it was law. And if you guys recall, if you worked on the Sabbath, or you made your slaves work on the Sabbath, you could be subject to death. And so this is, once again, it's a pretty powerful statement. I think it's true that a lot of these holidays that we celebrate and so forth don't get caught up in the rigmarole of the customs. Those customs are not what's in charge. It's us choosing to put those customs, to give those customs meaning on those holidays, is what it's all about. Not them having dominion over us. We, the people, just like in the United States, folks, we, the people, have dominion over the government, not the government having dominion over us. And we decide what the government should look like through our Constitution. And in the same way, the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath. The Son of Man decides what the rules look like and how things are set up, folks. So anyways, I enjoyed that reading today, Mark 2. So let's go to Mark 3. So Jesus went to a synagogue again and noticed a man with a deformed hand. And once again, here we go. The little trickster is always trying to trip up Jesus. Jesus said to the man with the deformed hand, "Come and stand in front of everyone." Then he turned to his critics and asked, "Does the law permit good deeds on the Sabbath, or is it a day for doing evil? Is there a day to save? Is it a day to save life or to destroy it?" But these hypocrites, as they always are, these folks that talk out of both sides of their mouth, they wouldn't answer him. They looked around and they were angry, and they were deeply saddened by their hard hearts, And then they said, then basically Jesus said, hold out your hand. He held it out, and it was restored by Jesus. And so once the Pharisees went away, they met with supporters of Herod, and they were pretty pissed by being shown up yet again by Jesus, and they were trying to figure out how to plot to kill Jesus and so forth. So anyways, that's that. So that one's pretty straightforward. These people, there's always second-handers, folks. There's a book by Ayn Rand, I'm sure you've heard of it, called Atlas Shrugged, as well as, I think the second-handers is more in Fountainhead. There's always individuals that don't know how to create, they don't know how to produce, and they're angry about that fact, so they try to take what somebody else creates and take it as their own. Now, keep in mind, there's some people in the world that can create, they can create an abundance, and there's other people that execute on creating more abundance, and then there's people that do both, and then there's everyone in between. I'm not talking about people that have a problem with what they do in that part of the spectrum. What I'm talking about is people that are truly, they act as though they know how to create, but they don't, and they try to take as much as creators can. And here's the irony, folks. Most creators that I've read about in history, and people that we pretty much, most of us, I would think, admire, people that create new ideas, create new ways of doing things in the world, they give far more than they ever take anyways. That's kind of what creates the creativity. Say that really fast. What creates the creativity is giving more than you get back. And when you give more than you get back, it's a virtuous cycle as far as I'm concerned. It's more of an infinite cycle. So I've noticed, at least for myself, I tend to be a somewhat creative person in certain disciplines. And I notice that if I notice things that nobody's really seeing, and I share those insights, I tend to get more insights back. And I'm not sure why it's happening. I sometimes think it's coming because as a way of gratitude on an energetic level from people that are receiving the ideas. I do think that might be happening. I just don't know how. I think I just have a sensation and I have a feeling that that's what's occurring. But then when I come up with really cool ideas that I only want to keep for myself, and I don't share them with anybody. And I know I have various buckets, folks. I have buckets of things I don't want to share, things I want to share in a future date, things I want to share after a certain set of events occur, and then things I just openly share as I do it, and I have all different types. And so the ones that I consciously don't want to share, it is almost like what Bruce Lee says, right? Flowing water. You don't want water to be stagnant. You need it to constantly flow. And ideas are the same way. So you have a choice. If you're kind of sidelining an idea because you don't want to give it to the world just yet or share it with the world, you got to be careful because it can get stale, and then it can basically die on the vine, so to speak. And so it's a fine line, and it's a balancing act. But I do kind of classify things on a spectrum when I work on problems, and but I will tell you from firsthand experience, when I'm more open with sharing, I get a lot more back. So these second-handers that don't know how to create and they just take, they're like a black hole in this world. They'll just take and they'll never be satisfied, and they'll continue to take from people as much as they can, and they'll continue to raise taxes and take more to regulatory capture. Does this sound familiar, folks? This is the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the party of second-handers. They've turned into the party of the communist, thugs that basically want to take everything, and they're nothing more than operators of some very corrupt people in this world, in this society. So they're allowed to have more than everybody else, and the people that have the most are okay giving them some, because when their day is up, they're going to take them out too. So don't kid yourself. This is the way these folks think. It's almost like they're all in on it together. They don't realize the one that's on the top of the food chain is going to eventually kill them as well. Maybe literally, maybe figuratively, but either way, they're going to take them out and so forth. So anyways, we're on the Psalms 36. One second. So let me see. Let's see here. The Psalms 36. So sin whispers to the wicked deep within their hearts. Man, sin is whispering every single moment of every day in the halls of Congress right now. They have no fear of God at all in their blind conceit. Wow, man, this is like a poem to the U.S. Congress. I think I'm going to post this tomorrow. I'm going to say this is a poem to Congress of the United States. They cannot see how wicked they really are. Everything they say is crooked and deceitful. They refuse to act wisely or do good. They lie awake at night, hatching sinful plots. Their actions are never good. They make no attempt to turn from evil. Your unfailing love, O Lord, is as vast as the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches beyond the clouds. Your righteousness is like the mighty mountains. Your justice like the ocean depths. You care for people and animals alike, O Lord. How precious is your unfailing love, O God. All humanity finds shelter in the shadow of your wings. You feed them from the abundance of your own house, letting them drink from your river of delights. For you are the fountain of light, the light by which we see. Pour out your unfailing love on those who love you. Give justice to those with honest hearts. Don't let the proud trample me, or the wicked push me around. Look, those who do evil have fallen. They are thrown down, never to rise again. Okay? I think I speak for all of us when I say we're waiting for that day. It hasn't happened yet, folks. I'm sitting there patiently waiting for these folks to be trampled by something. And, I'm not sure what's taken so long. And I'm hopeful. I just keep praying like everybody else is. I'm praying that we get these folks that have done all this wrong and done all this evil and who have operated with such reckless, just careless disregard for everybody else in our society. And I don't know what the tipping point is, folks. I think about it every day. And I think about who's going to tip it, who's going to trigger this thing. Like something's going to trigger it. I have no idea what it's going to be. I sometimes get little hints or flashes of what it might be, but I try not to look at it too much because I don't want to get dragged into it. Right? It's kind of like that Nine Inch Nails song I talked about with the tiniest little dot caught my eye. It's just I don't know if you guys have seen those lyrics before, but the retaliation is the concern, right? Because I do think they'll use weapons against us on U.S. soil. And I'm not talking about them shooting us. I think they might use other kind of high caliber weapons, unfortunately, that we funded. I don't envision them not being willing to use, neutron bombs to knock out our electrical grids, or they might use some hypersonic type of weapons. I really don't want to go there, folks. I've read way too much about this stuff. Like you guys don't want to know what's in my head about what they have. And first of all, I've had dreams about some of the stuff that they do have, that they haven't made public. And so some of these weapons are far more sophisticated than people realize. But it's very dangerous. I mean, I was sitting there driving home today from the office, and I was thinking about it from the standpoint that, how do we get more righteous people back in positions of power within our military complex? The ones that are, sitting there with our nuclear weapons, right? Or sitting there in the bunkers, that are guarding our nation. And maybe this is why Space Force was created. Space Force is a completely new independent arm of of our military. It's the 18th branch, and obviously the 17th branch was the NSA. And so 17, for those of you who might know, why you look at an alphabet, the 17th branch, there's an individual by the name of Michael Rogers, who is the 17th director of the NSA. Just bringing it up there if anybody's ever looked at the number 17. But Admiral Rogers is the one that went to President Trump and spilled the beans about everything that was happening. And, keep in mind that there's this horrible traitor by the name of Benedict Berry was trying to hand over our military defenses, one of our fleets, to be reporting into NATO. Like, I forgot, it's like a full division of our military. And this is what triggered the internal investigation into all the crimes that were being committed by Benedict Berry. So it's pretty scary stuff, folks, because there's a tremendous amount of damage that was done because of the former president prior to Trump, and it wasn't him in a vacuum. There was a lot of this damage was put into place by Bush as well as the Clintons, but mainly the Bush crime family is the one that's the ringleader operating on behalf of others. So anyways, I can't wait to go into Revelations. That's when it's going to get really dark, Celicia. It's going to get really dark when we go into Revelations. I hear you, Maria. Nothing happens until something happens. That's the saying. Nothing happens until it all happens at one time. And that's the problem. We just need to pray that it comes out as well as it can possibly come out. But I think we are going to have our, I guess our Saving Private Ryan moment, so to speak. D-Day and or Hiroshima and Nagasaki event. And so all you can do is prepare. That's all you can do. I'm glad France is fighting back against the lockdowns. The average person in Europe, I did some clips this morning about it this morning. If you look at Python points, the average European is 50 to 65% worse off than they were 10 years ago. 50 to 65% worse off. Yes, that's correct, folks. Imagine if you were 50 to 60% worse off in 10 years from where we are right now. But it crept up on you and you didn't even see it coming. So now, I think it's not going to just be yelling, Celicia. I think when it starts to turn a little more physical is when this stuff is going to change. And I'm not sure who's going to do it, but there's a movie called Rambo. Maybe some of you remember that movie, Rambo, remember? You remember who drew first blood, folks. And in that movie Rambo, that's what he says. I think I remember that line really well. He says, they drew first blood. And that's the deal, folks. They drew first blood. And so the question is, how is it going to go down? I don't know. And that's why they're desperate to get our guns. Because, 200, 300 million guns in this country. You can't take us down that way. So then they got to come up with creative ways to shoot us or kill us. And so that's why they do these passports, and they get everybody comfortable with the idea before they dial it up a few notches. They have brainwashed everybody. That's why it's called programming, right? Television programming for a reason. And now Netflix, I guess, seems to be the propaganda for the world. They're doing it on a massive scale. So it's a pretty big problem, folks. So anyways, here we are, the last one, Proverbs 10, Proverbs of Solomon. A wise child brings joy to a father. A foolish child brings grief to the mother. See that, folks? This is a very wise proverb by Solomon. The joy goes to the father, the grief goes to the mother. You hear that, Nicole? I said the joy goes to the father from a wise child. The foolish child that brings the grief, that goes to the mother. So the mother has got to clean up the mess. Just let's make this clear, folks. I'm saying it's right here, Solomon, okay? Solomon makes it very clear. Women, in particular the mothers, have to deal with the shit that comes with raising kids. I'm just kidding around. I just figured I'd get a rise out of it. Get a rise out of my wife. She's as cool and even keeled as a cucumber. I've only got her to raise her voice maybe twice in the past 5 years. How many times have you raised your voice?
Not very much.
What is it? Maybe 2 or 3? Have we broken 3?
I don't know, but it's all on. It's nothing with like personal stuff either. It's all like political stuff.
Oh yeah, it's political stuff. So my wife has only like raised her voice like literally maybe 2 or 3 times. I can't even remember the 2 or 3 times, but that's amazing. Maybe this is why God put her into, brought her into my life and said, listen, here's you hold up your end of the bargain. I'm going to give you somebody that could put up with all your bullshit. Especially your personality doesn't mesh with a lot of women, buddy. And you better I'm going to give you a little bit of an extra dosage of sainthood here to deal with you and so forth. But, I'm just laughing because, I don't know. I think it's pretty funny. Like, I sometimes wonder, it's like, how could you never raise your voice about anything? It's very bizarre. Growing up with 2 parents that were very passionate and spirited toward each other, I heard a little bit of yelling every day. Not even mean, folks. They just talk loud. And so I happen to be a loud talker as well. And some people think I'm yelling when I'm just talking loud. And so I have to be careful with my decibels when I get a little excited, because sometimes people misconstrue it as me yelling. And I'm like, who's yelling? I'm just talking loud. I got nothing to yell about. If I yell, you'll know when I'm yelling. But this is not yelling. This is just talking loud. But anyways, going back to the second sentence. This was pretty funny, folks, because there's only like 2 lines in this whole thing. Tainted wealth has no lasting value, right? So remember that, folks. All these criminals that stole all this money and their children that they think are going to inherit this money, we're going to figure it out at some point. We, the people, are going to figure out how much money was stolen from us. And those folks, at some point, we will have the technology, I have no doubt in my mind, and we will track down every last dollar. And the people will take what was rightfully theirs. And it doesn't matter if it takes 10 years or it takes 100 years. But the American people will get justice for everybody who's been cheated over the past 40, 50 years, and then some. And I think the penalty should be far harsher than just taking back the wealth that was stolen. But there should be more that is done. That's the way I think it's going to go down. But then when you go to the next one, but right living can save your life. And going back to right living can save your life, living the righteous life, what saves your life is your spirit, right? Your life isn't just physical form. So when I read this, I don't think about just our physical form, but our ability and God's willingness to let us continue on as a spirit. Even though people say the spirit is never destroyed and God never destroys spirits, I'm not entirely sure that that's 100% true. God can do anything. Remember, folks, with God, anything impossible is possible. Well, with that same logic, God can do whatever He wants with anything. And so I do think that the spirits that are tainted or broken or twisted, I do think there's a point when God just has said, I have enough of those as well. I'm going to take those out permanently. I don't want to recycle those into the cosmos or back into anything else that I create. I'm going to take them out. But the ones that try to live righteously and do the right life, they will continue to have a life. And that's my interpretation of this. So anyways, anybody have any questions? Let's see here. Eternal separation from God. Otherwise, why bother to sacrifice Jesus? What's the left is always whining about reparation? Somebody else. See, I think reparation, hope in Christ. The reason why reparations are taking place, it's a distraction. A lot of the same corrupt families that made a lot of money off of slavery back then, they're probably making a lot of money off of slavery in the world today. And so since they're making so much money off of slavery of different sorts, they want to distract the American people from the crimes that they're committing in the world today by focusing on crimes that their ancestors created years ago. I mean, that's my read on it. So they're basically saying, you know what? I donated all this money to these universities to recruit talent for my criminal organization. You guys pay the tab. I donated the money. Pay the tab out of those coffers, not out of my pile of cash. And that's what's going on there. That's what I think is going on. Who feel like there is no hell and God just saves everyone. Yeah, no. I do think everybody doesn't get to get saved. So I'm not sure if anybody else has anything to add. Otherwise, I'm going to just call it. I'm going to go to bed a little early tonight. I was up at 3 o'clock this morning, 3:30. And if you want to know why I was up, watch what I talked about with Europe this morning. My favorite part of the reading was definitely the part about, I think it was Psalms 36. And that was the first part of Psalms 36, where I think it describes Congress. That's my favorite part. It just totally nailed it. So anyways, that's where it's at. I'm gonna head out here. So I hope everybody has a wonderful evening. May God bless you. God bless your family and friends. And may God continue to bless the greatest nation in the history of humanity. And may peace be with you. And if for some reason you don't have peace tonight, pray a little harder. And I think you'll get your peace and get some good sleep. So with that, I will see you guys tomorrow. And, if you're going to check out anything with regards to my post on Python points, I highly recommend this morning about Europe and the one that I talked about on the 8th and the PM session, where I talk about the use of leverage. Have a look if you have any money that you invest for yourself or your family. It gives a really in-depth explanation as to what we need to be concerned about, because spiritual health is also tied to our mental health and our physical health, but also our financial health. Our finances are an extension of what we create in this world, and it's important that you guys start thinking about, if you're not doing this already, about what can be in store for us so that we prepare, better as Americans and so forth to deal with this. So with that, have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks again for joining it. God bless.